Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third day of the Faculty Advisor Sessions during the Enactus National Competition Week. I am Tembele Tsushange, and I'll be facilitating the session for today. Today, we have the honor of having Dr. Patrick Ebewo as our guest, who is going to, share his insights on the topic that we have, which is Rethink Entrepreneurship. And he's the perfect person for this day because he is an entrepreneurial development researcher and specialist. So we'll be getting a lot of information from him. But before I continue, good day, Dr. Ebewo.
Afternoon, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, and yourself?
Good.
Thank you so much for joining us. But before we get into your presentation, I'd like to just read your bio so that all of us here know who exactly you are and your accolades. So please just give it a listen. I'll be done in a few minutes. So Dr. Ebewo possesses a doctoral degree in business administration, specializing in entrepreneurship development. He also holds multiple degrees and diplomas in the fields of business, commerce, entrepreneurship, and management studies, where he got a diploma in accounting and business studies, cum laude in 2006, a bachelor's degree in finance, second upper class in 2009, a BTech in management, cum laude in 2011, as well as a master's degree in entrepreneurship, merit in 2014. During the past decade, he has gained experience working closely with relevant public and private enterprises in the development and moderation of entrepreneurship initiatives that are improving and sustaining the livelihood of individuals and communities. Through effective strategy conceptualization, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, he has been involved in the development and restructuring of various social enterprises, such as the University of Botswana Business Clinic, where he was president in 2007, the Students in Free Enterprise in Tshwane University of Technology, South Africa, also known as SIFE, TUT, where he was president in 2011, Capital City Junior Business Chamber, Pretoria, South Africa, where he is the founding chairperson in 2011 and later the strategic advisor in 2012, and Project 23, which is the Green Movement, where he was the vice chairperson in strategy and operations from 2012 to 2013. He then co-founded the South African Youth for International Diplomacy, the South Africa Organizing Committee for the G8 and G20 Youth Summits, where he served as the chairperson in 2011 till 2014. The G8 and G20 Youth Summits are global youth initiatives aimed at fostering youth international dialogue around the diplomatic issues promoted by the G8 and the G20. Dr. Ebewo initiated the establishment of the Arts Business Incubator in Tshwane University of Technology, South Africa, where he served as the coordinator from 2014 to 2017, which was aimed at cultivating the passion for entrepreneurship among arts and design students to accelerate the establishment of art-based and creative startups. He was also instrumental in the successful establishment of the TUT UNESCO Chair on Cultural Policy and Sustainable Development for Southern Africa. He pioneered in 2018, February, the re-establishment of the Tshwane University of Technology Center for Entrepreneurship Development, and the TUT Center is an ecosystem supporting the development of TUT as an entrepreneurial university, while it seeks to promote and expand the economic participation and inclusion of grassroots women, youth, and people with disabilities. While at Botswana Accountancy College from 2018 to 2019, Patrick assisted the college with the development of a startup school in support of the institution's strategy implementation as pertaining entrepreneurship development. Patrick also founded the Bopang PO Business Accelerator, a registered nonprofit company in South Africa that facilitates support through entrepreneurial education and capacity building to implement various sustainable initiatives in achieving the African Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals in the area of poverty eradication, food security, and sustainable energy solution in biodiesel technology, as well as production. A versatile enterprise and entrepreneurial expert, Dr. Ebewo is also an experienced academic. Patrick has over 7 years cumulative university research and teaching experience in the SADC region, Botswana and South Africa to be specific, lecturing management and entrepreneurship related modules at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. His research interests focuses on the niche areas relating to academic entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial performance, intentions and actions, entrepreneurial university, entrepreneurial finance, managing emerging technologies for socioeconomic impact, and technology acceptance. Dr. Patrick Ebewo currently has a dual responsibility within Tswana University of Technology, primarily the head of the TUT Center for Entrepreneurship Development, then as a senior lecturer within the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship. But lastly, he's also the faculty advisor of the Enactus TUT team. After a mouthful of a bio, we're so honored to have you here today. Welcome, Dr. Ebewo. How are you again?
I am fine, and thank you so much, moderator, for the wonderful introduction. And to the audience, thank you for joining us today. As already noted by the program director for the day, I'm here to share my thoughts. And I normally have disclaimers. Kindly note this is how I feel about entrepreneurship. If there's one person that will say if entrepreneurship runs through their veins, I think I will raise up my hand for that. So this is how I feel about the issues pertaining to entrepreneurship. But before I start, I really want to thank Enactus South Africa, from the board to management for the invitation. And I also want to congratulate the students for the success they've accomplished in 2021. It's not an easy period, but it seems that the flame of empowerment is still burning. So I really want to congratulate the student for such accomplishment, and to the Enactus team for ensuring that continues. But straight to my discussion for the day, entrepreneurship. I think we want to rethink entrepreneurship, and I will wear many hats today. But I will start with an academic hat to say, what do we believe is an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurship in terms of the concept? Well, I don't have the answer today, nor would we end up having an answer, because globally there is no acceptable definition when it comes to entrepreneurship. It depends on which side of the fence you sit on, and we definitely see what entrepreneurship is. But for me, there are common themes that comes out of when we are providing discussion on entrepreneurship. One key theme is being able to take risk. But please note, it's about calculated risk. It's not just about taking risk. We need to have the ability to calculate the risk that we are about to take. And you're taking this calculated risk because you've identified problems, you've identified challenges that requires sustainable solutions. And keyword, sustainable solutions. And the reason why you are doing this is to ensure that you have evaluated profitable opportunities, not a keyword, profitable opportunities. We're doing all of this to enable us introduce new products, new services that is actually required for today's consumption. So I'm starting off with this because to really provide context to the core issue of entrepreneurship, and I thought let's share what my views are, because I know most of us being students, the first question will be, so what is entrepreneurship to you? This is what entrepreneurship is for me. So it doesn't matter what type of enterprise it could be, but as long as it is profitable, then we can talk about entrepreneurship. But before then, concern is, why is it so needed? Every single corner that you hear is that we are not entrepreneurial enough. So why are we looking at this? It's to do with the triple challenge that we are faced with. We're faced with extreme poverty. We're faced with unemployment, the inequality gap, has just skyrocketed thanks to COVID-19. COVID-19 has simply pushed off the cliff. If the events of the last 2 weeks have not woken us up in this country and on this continent, then I'm very worried what will wake us up. And part of the context here is there are too few jobs. I'm very happy we have employers here with us and they are hosting sessions. Should you ask those employers for a job, they'll be very honest with you. There are too few jobs. We have poor education as a context. I'm in academia. I will accept the fault. We have poor education system. There is no debate on that from my side. The question is, our infrastructure is crumbling. Of course, the elephant in the room, corruption. And I will not talk much about corruption today, by the way. That is a topic for another day. But essentially, based on this context, we need to appreciate that we need an environment that promotes entrepreneurial behaviors. And like I've already mentioned, should we be able to create such an environment, I believe naturally employment opportunity will arise. If nothing else, you at least as possible graduates next year, create employment for yourself, if not for your family or others as well. But we might talk about entrepreneurship just as background. It's not all rosy. We have challenges that we are faced with. There's an issue pertaining to education and training I've already alluded to. There's a concern on lack of financial support. We talk so much that we forget that we require resources. Even when sometimes the resources are provided, where is the access to the market, particularly for young entrepreneurs like ourselves? In terms of psychology, we are so afraid of failing. And I'm wondering, what are you afraid of? Particularly for you students and alumni, you find a scenario where you might just have the experience of being unemployed for a couple of years. That's the reality that we are faced with. So what's the worst thing that can happen to you? So, but yet we have fear of failure. Issues of corruption, issues of crime always comes up. And this is both in any academic research that you will be looking at. These are common themes. Worse off, even when the assistants are there, it is uncoordinated. You are expected, and this is the reality, you are expected to understand the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem. It doesn't matter who you are. And the question is, do we really understand entrepreneurship and how it should be developed? And the last point I just want to raise, because there's a lot of them, but for the purposes of the discussion, is the issue of red tape. You want to start up enterprises, but yet the regulation is not on your side. Policy is impeding entrepreneurship development. And specifically, I will talk about education, and you allow me. For particular reasons, all of us are from universities, from different studies area, and the question is, what is the impact of what we are learning today on our entrepreneurial thinking? Most of our universities in this country is still considering traditional classroom delivery.
to an extent where even the students do not want to move out of that scope of traditional classroom. Because what it does is about marks driven. How much marks have I gained? Can we measure success on marks? It's about theory knowledge. And I believe some of the employers will confirm this, that they need to retrain you when you get to work. Talk less of your ability to take risk. Talk less of it providing a platform that you could become a critical thinker. And the opposite, we should ensure that we promote entrepreneurship culture, even in our classrooms. And if your educational setting does not do that for you, it is your responsibility to learn. It's all about the entrepreneurial mindset. We should look at inculcating entrepreneurial skills no matter what level of education that you are in. I was also asked to also share a few research-based. There's a lot of research on this subject matter, but I just thought I should share the issue on intentions and actual entrepreneurial behavior. Other colleagues have published. There's even a publication on Enactus on these issues, but this is quite a summary of what we could actually discuss. There is no silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. But there are key themes that could lead us to where we want to be. And one of the major key themes is our attitude. Change your attitude, you will change the world around you. It's about believing in our abilities. And of course, what is the ecosystem? Is it an external ecosystem, or is it an ecosystem that has been created by third parties? And for me, this is where I think as we move on, where I'll be challenging Enactus SA to rethink also the scope of work that we are doing. So it is possible that we provide an environment that supports entrepreneurial thinking. It is very possible. And research is there to prove that. We work with data, we have the data. The question then becomes the support for implementation of some of those data output. Other issues that could actually be key enablers. Key is a question of the fourth industrial revolution. How are we allowing experimentation when it comes to entrepreneurial development? The other issue is the support that we are receiving. We're calling for smart support. And how much are we investing in skills that we require? The other concern I've already mentioned, how are we utilizing data that is our disposal? And do we collectively have an ability to avoid capture of our government? I so wish that the last 2 weeks movement that, of course, very appalling, was about capture of government and corruption. I so wish. But these are key issues that we can avoid when we are trying to rethink entrepreneurship. We need to think about what are we getting ourselves into And rethinking the culture itself of entrepreneurship is critical. And I will share a few notes. So we are calling for project-based learning. Are we able to throw out the textbook? Are we able? Or while the textbook might be important, is it the Holy Grail? And the answer for me is no. Are we able to forge partnerships? Entrepreneurship programs should not be seen as extra curriculum activities. It shouldn't. But yet, it is almost recognized that way in most of our institutions. Are we able to bring in genuine partnerships with industries? Are our lecturers and educators able to become co-creators than teachers? When you talk about entrepreneurship, there's less teaching that is involved and more creation. So can our lecturers and educators also rethink the way they deliver the curriculum? Should you think about curriculum development? So the trust here is, are we able to facilitate support for the development of our student entrepreneurs? Yes, Enactus, you have started, but we have a lot of work to do. Are we able to develop entrepreneurial competencies of our students, of our members? Are we able to provide them with access to the much needed funding? Are we? Are we able to provide them with industry coaches and mentors? Because these items will enable the acceleration of the sustainable businesses that we so deem require in the country. And just to share as well on what we've done, I know a few references have been made to the work that have been done on the ground. And this model, you feel free to request for it for your own implementation. We talk about personal development, to rethink entrepreneurship, particularly its development. It's a mindset game. And for you to start thinking about mindset without talking about self-mastering and personal development, we always focus on developing enterprise so much that we've forgotten that it's individuals that run those enterprises. So we've adopted the lean startup, but we've provided more emphasis on certain items. So for those of you that are more familiar with the lean startup, we're talking about ideating, we're talking about business modeling, but not just stopping there. Are you able to implement and your prototypes? We're talking about how do we optimize your ideas, your organizations. And I dare challenge us, we need to do this while most of our students are still in the university. And the one that excites me the most is the opportunity that Enactus can really think about an impact program solely focusing on our alumni. And a lot of services that such impact program could offer. How do we capture the entrepreneurial mindset of our former members? And please note, this is not a competition. This is real life. And the question is, how then do we provide such support? So this is just a model that anyone can consider. But moving on to part of the discussion, therefore, what do? We say, where are the investors? Where are the linkages to investors? Where are the linkages to the market? Can we custom make specific training programs? Can we look at coaching, mentorship? Can we provide professional services? We believe for us to start talking about rethinking the way we consider entrepreneurship, we need to focus on building entrepreneurial ecosystems. And this is really for you potential students and potential graduates. It's all about the mindset game. Do you have the right attitude? Do you have the right mindset? And we all know this story about the fourth industrial revolution. While other countries that might be introducing fifth industrial revolution, we start talking about 5G networks, but yet some of our rural communities are struggling with 3G connections. Something just for you to think about. Where could the possible opportunities lie? But before then, something for you to consider. What entrepreneurship are you considering? Are you talking about employing mates? Well, in the near future, you will be out of business because I will not need any further assistant than buying robots or manufacturing my own robots. If you think this is far-fetched, go to certain countries. Robots will welcome you to an airport. Robots are helping out the elderly. Even in the country, for some of you that I use McDonald's, sorry, I love my food, you can be serviced as well, self-serviced. But it's getting there where we're going to lose some of those so-called jobs, where robots will replace us. But what is your thinking? This is an opportunity for you as an entrepreneur. You're talking about floating cities. We in Africa, we are still waiting for our land to come back to us, while others are dreaming of creating cities over us. Where are you in the space? And the last one that I want to share with all of us, we're all talking about having farms, poultry farms. Well, we might as well just print our wings. And we might cry about this. No, it might not be healthy. My question is, who told you so? GMOs are here to stay. Question is, this is the future. So as you are thinking about entrepreneurship, you need to rethink the type of ventures that we are talking about. Today, I'm not here to talk to you about spaza shops. It's a question pertaining to rethinking the future. And this is, unfortunate, the future that we are all going to be faced. There's immense opportunity from renewable energies to digital startups. And don't tell me it is not possible. Who said so? Have you even tried? Digital services, have you tried? Have you thought about robotics? Yes, there are no fundings for it yet in the country, by the way. Hence, I'm saying we also need to think about the ecosystem. But have you taken the first step? What is your attitude? Are you rethinking the way we process food? Are we rethinking the way we do agriculture? Are we rethinking our transportation? And this, for me, is rethinking entrepreneurship. And just to summarize that, for those of you that really want to take notes, there are opportunities in the manufacturing space. Where are we getting our masks from? We're still importing them. There are opportunities in the agriculture and agro-processing space. What are you doing about it? There are opportunities in renewables. There are opportunities in digital and creative services. There are opportunities in the water, sanitation, and hygiene sector. These are just a few sectors that you could possibly consider venturing into. And in conclusion, before we open up for discussion, we need to become unconventional thinkers. We need to be able to challenge conventional wisdom. Without challenging conventional wisdom, we will live in yesterdays. Don't just start a business or a brand. That's not what entrepreneurship is all about. My challenge to you is go mad. And I mean, go mad. Go make a difference. What difference will you be making in your community? What difference will you be making in your life? What are you creating to empower others? Or particularly for the Enactus student, after this, we are done. What are you creating? What society do we want to see? We've not started. We've not done enough. Because if we were to do enough, the last 2 weeks was not supposed to happen. We have a lot to do. But what are you doing about it? So practically, we need individuals of all kinds. It doesn't matter what you might have studied and or not studied. It doesn't matter if you think you have a particular ability. We just need you to think entrepreneurially. Don't see problems. See challenges that you can transform into opportunities. Rethink entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not just about ideas. Entrepreneurship is about your action that you have taken. What is your dreams? Do you have a vision? That's questions that in some cases that you need to answer personally. As we are moving on, I dare you to think big. I dare you. What role will you play in people's lives? What entrepreneurship are you thinking about? What will be your role in people's lives? But as we are thinking big, let's think small. Let's start small and grow from there. But by you starting small, are you going to be useful in the way I live my life? Are you going to be useful in the way your neighbor lives their lives? Between me and you, that is where you start making the possible profitability that we all seek. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not just start a business. Let's think about what we can do remarkably. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebewo, for such a fruitful and insightful session. I myself have learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone who's watching and all our attendees have also learned quite a lot. Okay, so we have a jam-packed Q&A because there's quite a lot of questions, so let's just get straight into it. So how we'll conduct it is that I will ask the first 5 questions and then in one round, and then we'll let you answer, and then we'll do another round of 4 so far that we have. So because we have a lot, let's get straight into it. The first question is, what does it mean to calculate risks? The second question is that, wait, should I let you write down, or would you rather just answer one by one? I can't hear you, sorry.
Oh, sorry, just go ahead, just read out the question, I'll just take the notes.
Okay, perfect. So the second question is that they are entrepreneurs with an educational background and those without the latter. So what impact does education have on entrepreneurs in as far as a need for entrepreneurial research is concerned? So that's the second question. And then the third question is, given the status quo and the looting that occurred and the billions that were lost in the industries affected, would you say that this ordeal has opened a gap for building entrepreneurs? That's a question that I have for you as well. And then the fourth question is, how have your priorities changed from when you started? This is a personal question. And then the fifth from Dumisho says, given the fact that the fourth industrial revolution is pertinent to the world, business, and any industries, and many industries rather, do you have any online workshops or courses that could enhance entrepreneurial skills? So that's the first round of questions. Over to you, Doctor. Let's just give the doctor some time to, gather his thoughts, and I'm sure he'll be with us shortly.
Okay. I will start with the first question on the issue of calculated risk. How do you calculate risk? You need to do an assessment. Is the opportunity worth your effort? And I normally use an example in terms of when you go to holidays. I know, unfortunately, now the beach are closed, and when you get into any beach, you don't just jump in. We normally put in one leg to test the water in terms of the temperature. You're also doing that in case there might be sharks waiting. My concern then becomes, when it comes to entrepreneurship, we want to jump in without making a full assessment. If the opportunities that you might have identified and seek to explore, if it will be profitable. And the key word here is, would it worth your while? But in normal cases, we say, try, test it out on a small scale, and then we can then scale it up. Because the next question would then be, how will we be sure? Test it out, and I'm saying things small. Test it out, see if it works in a small scale, and then you can then look at scaling. And by so doing, you might have corrected a few mistakes that you might have done. The other question, definitely, there is an old age debate between nature and nurture regarding there are entrepreneurs that have educational background and some that do not have educational background. There's a lot of research within this area. Look, we need all of them. We need all those entrepreneurs, but the issue of the impact of education, there's room for more research, but from what we've done, bits that we've done from our side, there is evidence that a well-structured education system, in particular, entrepreneurship education, leads to entrepreneurial behavior. There is evidence for that. It is for that reason that we are saying, yes, for those that might be born entrepreneurs, good for them. But how about the rest that we can change their mindset? And how then do we go about that? Definitely, there is need for further research because, as you know, some research are conceptual. And you can then look at various localities that you can conduct such similar research. The question of the status quo, definitely. I'll start with the whole COVID situation. And hence, I keep saying it's about mindset. And when COVID hit us, we all cried. For me personally, after the first 2 weeks, I saw business opportunities. The current crisis that we are in right now, there's so much opportunity, so much opportunities that we can think about. So already, yes, it presents us with opportunity. The question is, what action are we going to take? Then there was a question regarding priorities and change from when we started. Definitely, priorities have changed. We started off also throwing in ourselves, but you quickly notice that for one, initially you do things because you might see the opportunity, but at the end of the day, it might not be what it is. So with that experience, when certain opportunity comes your way, you then do those full evaluations. So on a personal note, most priorities have changed. Currently, what one is focusing on is not what we started off with. And just to give you organic growth, even with the current programs that we're running currently, what was implemented in 2019 is not what we implemented in 2020. By the way, and what we are implementing in 2021 has nothing to do with 2020. So priorities must continuously change. That shows the learning curves. That shows the learnings and the experience and the lessons that you've obtained over time. And I don't want to get into specifics, but the other question is a question of do we organize sessions? The answer is yes, and I believe if needs be, we'll communicate with the Enactus office. Once some of those programs will come online, we will share it, and then you can then come in. One of the good story is we look for ways to ensure that should you be a student, our programs are for free. Should you be a student? Because we really believe on empowering students. I hope I've managed to answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. We have an array of more questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. So let's get straight into it. So the first question in the second round is from Pausi Dup. Hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you for engaging. So it says, what is the future of other traditional business like musicals, cinemas, etc., and other traditional jobs? And as an entrepreneur, is it advisable to start a traditional business, given status quo, I assume? Also, because she fears that they will die because of improvement in technology. So I think overall the question is there still a gap for traditional business? The second question is, can you please elaborate on building entrepreneurial ecosystems and how then do we go about doing that? From Luto Kashe. And then the third question from Sibusile Dlamini is, can you please provide an elaboration on the characteristics of an unconventional thinker? And then from Reginald Khumutso, it says, to rethink the route, does it matter to have a flexible nature of the business? And how does the nature change? How does the nature of change in a business impact your entrepreneurial path? And then for the last question, how can a young entrepreneur maximize the opportunities presented by all the sectors that you discussed without any prior experience or know-how in the sector he or she wishes to pursue? There are 4 other questions, but I do think it'll be overwhelming. So let's wait for another round. So let's give you some time to just answer the last few.
Thank you so much for engaging. I will start with the last question. We remember when I talked about being smart. One of the big lessons when it comes to entrepreneurship is about you being a bridge contractor. So I use the bridge contractor as an example to say you are there to lay connections and networks. Come up with the idea. You seemingly do not have experience in this field. You think like an employer. You need to go and hunt. No advert here. You headhunt somebody that you believe can assist you to achieve the idea. And you can do that in varieties of way. Are you paying the person? You want to come up with a prototype of a system, but you don't have an engineering background. Look for an engineer and pay them. If you don't have the money, start off by offering them equity stake in your entity as form of payment, or have an agreement with that particular individual. You don't have an experience in your agriculture and agro processing space. Look for a partner with the necessary know-how. They might not have the entrepreneurial mindset. You do. Bring them in for the technical skills. Or else, like what some of us have done, you send yourself to school. And when I'm talking about schooling, I'm not talking about a university. I believe we have enough information online that could really assist in some of the learnings. But that said, if you do really want in certain things, you might need to just have self-education. Self-education in some cases are the best. But that doesn't stop you from thinking about some of those possible ideas. You build a team for its implementation. But definitely the idea must come from somebody, and that person is yourself. The question regarding traditional business versus technology, look, you need to evolve. There is still place for traditional business and traditional jobs, but the question then becomes, how would you evolve? Let's simply take a case study like Take a Lot. In South Africa right now, you go into Take a Lot, you go to Take a Lot, you buy anything, it gets to be delivered. Take a Lot is also planning on using unmanned vehicles for their delivery, if not drones. So the question is, do you understand the evolution of your sector? Have you done your value chain analysis to see where the gaps are? Because why it might seem as traditional business becomes the backbone, just for an example of transportation, why are you not going for a 2 weeks training to become a drone pilot if you're looking at the transportation and logistics space? For some of you that are thinking of starting a security company, there are drones now, security drones. Why are you, if you are going that route, it's still traditional in terms of security wise. However, the implementation of it, you need to find a way of infusing technology. You might be able to start next 5 years, you might be able to be in business, but you quickly find that if you do not bring in technology slowly, you might be practically out of business. Technology helps. It should be an enabler. If you're thinking about the agricultural space, we talk about drought, we talk about less water. Hello, there is technology. Yes, it might be expensive, but are we able to then bring in the same technology into the space? Yes, there might be a reduction. Yes, there might be a reduction in the traditional jobs that you could create in your business. However, it becomes a displacement because more jobs are created in a different sector. So I see both can complement each other, but if you're really going to be in business for the next 5 to 10 years, I'm talking about you having a vision. if you're going to be in business for the next 5 to 10 years, you can start traditional. However, start asking yourself a question: how should I embed technology in my business? The question of ecosystem development, once again, there might not be a silver bullet to this. However, the question is, how do you utilize your social network? And sometimes we might start thinking about certain things wrongly, but are you able to bring in like-minded people from different sectors? So if you're talking about building ecosystem for entrepreneurs, where is the funding coming from? You don't need money to start up a business, but you need money to scale your business. So who will finance the scaling of your business? Can you bring in partners that could enable entrepreneurs? Depending on which sector that you are in, do you have access to the market? You can have all the wonderful ideas that you want to have. If you don't have access to the market, good luck. Who will you be selling to? So can you bring some of those key market players as a partner? And I'm speaking, I hope I'm speaking to students as well. This is where we are saying, consider your business model. These are activities that you do during your business model development that you can quickly identify who are your possible key partners. The other one is government. You might hate them, but as an entrepreneur, you don't hate anybody. You need to bring them to the party. Like it or not, you need to talk to the likes of CEDA. If you like it or not, you need to talk to the likes of CIFA, which is a small enterprise finance agency. Like it or not, you need to talk to DBASA. Like it or not, you need to talk to our friends, the bankers. I hope I'm happy that we have NetBank with us. Already, you have a one solid ecosystem developer in the room today. We can talk to companies. They are supposed to be running their enterprise development projects. But the question is, what type of enterprise development are they running? Is there impact for it? Can they show us the impact? And these are the kind of players that you actually bring to the same table to say, can we put our minds together? And of course, you then understand that each individual players should consider what role they will play within the ecosystem. And of course, last but not the least, there is you, the entrepreneur, because we can create that entire ecosystem for you and your mindset is not there, forget it. We've seen it happening. We've created platforms for our student entrepreneurs. You end up with only 25% of them. It's hard work. A colleague normally says that entrepreneurship, especially with the ecosystem, this is not about tenders or RFQs. This is about who will get a tender to come to you to purchase from you, the manufacturer. You practically don't have time to apply for tender documents. So these are the opportunities. Yes, you need the industry players, you need the regulators on the same table with you. The issue of characteristics of an unconventional thinker, I practically have one. And that one is that individual never accepts the status quo. Never. Who said this should be the case? I'm not saying go break rules. Stretch the law. If needs be, let it be because of you that new policies are created. Stretch the limit. So for me, characteristic of unconventional thinker, no is not the answer. You do not accept whatever happens yesterday. It's all about today and the future. And then the last one was the issue of the nature of business. You will need to adapt. Some of us started as a consultant, We've ended up in academia, but at the same time, we're looking at various industries. And some of those industries are coming in because of the changing phase of business. It's not about how many businesses have you registered. Same business, can you rethink its application? If there's an opportunity in the financial sector, why not? Yes, I'll use an example. We're identifying the issue of ecosystem. Why are you not being the one creating that ecosystem and bringing in the partners? So the changing environment will affect your entrepreneurial pathway. The bottom line, you stay entrepreneurial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We have an influx of questions. So what I'm going to do to all the participants, I'm seeing that there's repetition in terms of people participating and asking questions again. So in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the second question just to allow others to have a chance. So we have just a lag time of another 10 or so minutes. So just to get straight into it. So Deborah asks, what are the requirements that one would require to start a business, from the registering to the paperwork? Shibia asks, my question will be, what causes one to rethink entrepreneurship? That's the second question. And then the third question is from Anonymous, says, looking at the looting that took place, do you think we still stand a chance to attract foreign investors for us upcoming entrepreneurs? Interesting question. Evans asks, he says, a good business is one that can solve a problem. In our rural community, we have problems that require a great amount of resources to solve. How does one get the courage to pursue meaningful solutions using minimum resources? And then Kinelo says, good day. Thank you for such an informative session. I am aware that being able to communicate to prospective funders and consumers is very important. So with someone who is introverted and communication being a problem, how can you deal with such? And then to squeeze one last question from Mumfundo Sibia. Hello, doctor. What is the best way to attract investors to a startup? We are in a favorable industry with a high success rate. However, we have just started and we are a group of students with little experience. We would like to have an experienced partner who'd be able to guide us. And then one last question from Sizo Like is, in light of the prevailing industrial revolution and its significance, how do we ensure that our segmentation can access the technological services or products we offer without perplexing them if they're over 50 years? And then Lucky Mulepo asks, in promoting an entrepreneurial mindset and developing the necessary skills, what do you think are the key skills to teach, and what sectors are the backbone of the South African economy? And that was the last round of questions. Over to you, Doctor.
I'm sorry, just repeat the last question again.
The last one, sure. So it says, in promoting an entrepreneurial mindset and developing the necessary skills, what do you think are the key skills to teach, and what sectors are the backbone of the South African economy?
Okay, thank you so much. I will start
Sure.
with the last question. Issues of skill set. Our especially for the education system, and we should do away with marks. We should completely do away with giving percentage to our students. That is my take. Skills is about being resourceful. Critical skills in terms of critical thinking is very important. Like I said, I also have the experience of being on the other side, where you just ask as a student to think, and they will tell you it's not in the textbook. In your business, are you going to consider a textbook? So it's about critical thinking. It's about being resourceful. How resourceful can we teach our youth and our student to be able to take risk? So for me, being resourceful, critical thinker, those are key skills that is needed. The other skills that is needed, that I'm even not going to talk about too much about it, is the issues of financial literacy. And I'm saying so in particular reason to say we teach a lot, but simple calculations of our figures we don't know. And I think that's where some of the debate comes in to then say, no, I will get a chartered accountant to manage my business. If I was chartered accountant, you were not going to see your money. So the question is, there are some skill set, thanks to the education system, that our learners are not even thinking. So some of those are some that I can think about right now. In terms of the sectors, we like it or not, in South Africa, on the African continent, agriculture and agro-processing stays the #1 space. And I will tell you the reason. I know some of us will say, but in South Africa, mining is a big sector. In 2020, where was mining? The agriculture sector was the only with green numbers in terms of our GDP. Go to other countries on the continent, same. So yes, that for me becomes a key driver. Manufacturing sector, we are not doing enough in that sector, and those becomes opportunity. Thanks to COVID-19, completely has elevated the water, sanitation, and hygiene sector. Completely. We hear our presidents, we hear ministers telling us we need to wash our hands. The colleague that talks about rural community opportunities, there are no water in those rural communities. The next water I have is for me to drink. That is, if it is quality water for me to drink. So there is another sector completely that yet again, only few people really are really considering. The other sector, of course, becomes the digital services sector and the creative sector. And I know we had, I don't want to talk about construction, but because of the infrastructure development trajectory of the country and government in terms of infrastructure backlog that we have, that is another sector. But when you are getting into the sector, how innovative are you? Are we still looking at bricks and mortar development? There are other innovative technologies that are out there. Steel construction. But are we able to adapt some of these technologies? And I believe from the entrepreneurial side, that is where we come in. So to answer your question, your manufacturing, your agriculture, issues pertaining to the wash industry, issues pertaining to the digital services industry. I shall not mention the mines because you don't have the money. Even when you are talking about beneficiation, you still don't have money for beneficiation, except you want IDC to give you the funding. So it could be a challenge, but there's still opportunity for it. Issues of green energy. I have engineering student listening right now. I have science student listening right now. Green technology. Why are we bringing in technologies from Europe to the country? What are you studying? Those for me becomes the opportunity for us. And I will link that to the issues of courage. When it comes to rural, I'm in the rural community, I see opportunities. What do I do? Go for it. That is the answer. Go for it. Find mechanisms, do your part, the money will follow you. You know, sometimes we say, but I don't have money. I will tell you, stop drinking Coke for a week. You definitely have 100 Rand in your pocket. Stop drinking alcohol for a week. Thanks to the president, I think is not actually opened. You save money. Some of us are with NEFSAs. How much money can you save with NEFSAs right now that you can start up your own business in the rural community? The money will follow you. And I believe one of the big models for rural development is social enterprise. And I was not talk so much about it because Enactus is doing a wonderful work on that. The other question was issues pertaining to possible support that I had. The student that are struggling to attract investors for their business, who do you want to assist you? It becomes the issue of having courage to approach them. And you can talk to Enactus on the side. You can give my contact, and we can then see how we can assist you, particularly for your possible startup. We don't have the money. We might not know the investor. We'll sit down with you. We'll craft a way out together and see how we can assist with that regard in terms of the linkages. And that brings to the question of, how do I deal with communication? Please, you don't have a choice. You don't. You are as good as your last pitch. And that is why most of programs that we run, or in terms of the ecosystem that the colleague asked already, ensure that your entrepreneurs can represent themselves. They don't need to be a wonderful speaker, but can they at least be able to present? So I think there's a lot of programs that you can look at, and I believe even in Enactus create that platform for us to learn how to represent ourselves. There's no easy way out from communicating your ideas. You need to learn how to communicate your ideas. And then there was the issue of foreign direct investment. Yes, the investors might have rethink investing in South Africa or investing on the continent, but between me and you, there are so much opportunities. I will tell you now, most investors are actually rethinking on what they need to be able to invest in the country. Some of them are seeing the opportunity on the other side of this crisis. What's have happened elsewhere, I believe we will be able to rebuild ourselves as a country. We will be able to rebuild the country brand. We've seen worse, and I hope it doesn't get worse than this, but we've seen worse, and definitely we can rebuild our brand, rebuild the confidence in the country. One thing that is on our side is the institutions and the systems. That's one thing that is on our side as a country. And you're still going to see the investors actually coming back to invest in the country. So not to worry about that. There should be opportunity for you to obtain possible foreign investment for your possible startup. And there was a question on rethinking entrepreneurship. Before I lose it. And program director, just that question on rethinking entrepreneurship.
Sure. Let me just find it as well in the list of questions. It says, what causes one to rethink entrepreneurship? So how do you go about rethinking entrepreneurship?
Okay, no, thank you.
Sure.
As with any other thing in life, things evolve. Nature doesn't stay constant. We then also must not stay constant. We need to rethink our views of entrepreneurship. And for me, for the next 10 years, that thinking is not just about us saying we want to be entrepreneurial or we want to understand entrepreneurship. It should be about the doing part of entrepreneurship. What are you doing about entrepreneurship? Maybe previously the rethinking was, let's learn, let's throw awareness on entrepreneurship. We've passed that awareness stage because awareness alone is not helping us. That is why we need to refocus to say, moving further, what should we be doing? We should then, for me, be thinking about mostly about the development of these enterprises that we are preaching. So what has caused us to rethink this entire process is some of the things that we did in the past have not worked. And as human beings, we are allowed to make mistakes because we learn from it. But now it's time for us to refocus and rethink the process of what we need to do. And the last question that I got from Deborah was, the requirement of starting up a business. For me, the first requirement is, where is your prototype? Where is your prototype? We are very fast. We are very fast in registering businesses. We go to CIPC. And by the way, you register your business. You don't need to pay any consultant. It will cost you about 175 Rand. You then choose a bank, shall not mention the name. You choose a bank, and then the business is practically done. Sometimes you just go to the bank and register the business via the bank, and the bank actually open a bank account for you. Then you go to SARS, the revenue collector, to activate your PIN, and voila, we start getting into business. No, that is just a formal process. For me, where is the prototype of your product? Where is the prototype of your service? Then we can think about registering a business before you start wasting money and wasting resources. So the key issue here is, what idea do we want to pursue? Is there an opportunity for that idea? I'm not saying you can't go and register your business, because we in this country, because of policy, we start saying, are you in business for the last 3 years? It doesn't matter if I started my business last week. It's about the value proposition that I'm giving that you should be looking at, not when the business started. I can get into business today on an idea that I've been in development for the last 10 years. That doesn't disqualify me from someone that I've registered a business, did tax clearance for the last 10 years without a single revenue run in that company. So we need to separate those two. So for me, one of the major requirements for really setting up a business is, where is your idea? What is the idea? Is it profitable? This is where the calculation of the risk comes in. And in some cases, you get other people that says, jump into it, we will learn from it. So if the idea is there, you can then decide the type of registration that you need to do. Is this a full profit entity, or is it a non-profit entity? If it's a full profit entity, for our level, you can consider registering a private company with a CIPC. Even at this level, you can also consider, if a team or a group, of registering a cooperative. And a cooperative is a good form of business. It's all about the governance structure that you can put in place. For some of us that are more social inclined, you can then think about a non-profit company. I know you'll be hearing about NPOs. That is a non-profit organization that you register with social development, but you can still register as a non-profit company with a CIPC. But like I quickly mentioned, it doesn't stop there. That is one step of your registration. You then move on. You need other regulatory requirements. The basic one is, do you have a bank account? Basic one is your tax clearance. And for you to get the tax clearance, are you activated with SARS? Just those basic. Then you can consider obtaining your BE certificates. However, what is the idea that that business will be pursuing? Do you even understand what the business will be doing? So for me, it is a catch-22. You can do both in parallel, but even with registrations, and remember, it depends on the industry that you are in. If you are in the construction industry, there are further requirements that you need. The CIDB certification. If you're in the health space, there's a further requirements that you need. So it also depends on the industry, but the most basic is with your bank, is with your CIPC registration, is with SARS. But then depending on the industry, you then become industry specific in terms of the requirement. But for me personally, where is your prototype? Because that will really set the tone of the type of organization that you want to start up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patrick Ebewo. Yo, what an engaging session, an insightful session. I personally learned a lot, and judging from the engagement, it seems that a lot of us learned, from your presentation, and we're definitely forced to rethink entrepreneurship. So the mandate of the day has been fulfilled. And it forces us to just go back and figure out what the purpose behind each of our businesses are. Even if you've started or if you're about to start, you know, how do you go about with status quo and understanding the different things that you've learned today in actually, you know, implementing that in your business. Thank you so much, Dr. To everyone who engaged and was with us today in the session, thank you for joining, thank you for engaging, thank you for your insightful questions. To Enactus South Africa, thank you for the platform to allow us to engage with people such as Dr. Patrick Ebewo. We have learned a lot and we definitely are grateful for this platform. To everyone, have a great afternoon. I think this is the end of our session. Thank you once again and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Also, do make sure that you watch the presentations of the national competition that are going on throughout this week and other sessions that will follow for the rest of the week. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye and God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.